running when I'm running servers in the cloud, I have been using AWS, and that's what I use for testnet and everything else. But it is that my only problem with AWS. I love the services. I've used it for years for various stuff. But it can be expensive, and especially when you're running a server and the instances that we've been running. Funny enough, I believe so I've migrated from AWS to DigitalOcean. I believe the instance I'm running is a 16 gig instance, and I wanted to wait a little while before I talked about it because, consensus wise, I think pretty much everyone through validators has talked about, or at least from what I remember, I think the consensus is 32 gigs. I've been saying 32 gigs for a while of memory. 64 gigs, of course, is plenty as well. And if you're running 100 plus validators, maybe you start getting up to, more RAM and bigger, all the bigger stuff, CPU, cores and gigahertz and all the stuff. Maybe even more hard disk space. Why not? It comes with it. Why not get like 10 terabytes of hard disks? It's not a big upgrade once you're going for the larger, more server level, bigger tier processors and stuff and memory. So I believe I'm running 16 gig. I need to double check that, but I didn't want to talk about it too much until I test it, see how it works for a while, make sure it works. But if this works, I believe I will be able to reduce, and let me bring up the post here too. I think I'll be able to reduce costs quite a bit because under AWS, are you ready for it? It was around between $600 and $700 through there per month, which it's just too much. I mean, it's even if you believe the PLS price is going to be, $1, a penny, whatever one day. And I believe the price is going to go up, my personal opinion. Obviously, a lot of people believe that as well. That's why they're in the ecosystem, all this stuff. So I just believe it just won't matter one day because the price will more than cover it, the gains, all the stuff. That's what I believe will happen for me and my validators. Perhaps everyone else as well. Who knows? So I really don't care as much about the server costs right now. I know, it's not going to be super profitable, bear market, whatever, don't care. However, if I can be much cheaper, and let me pull up the tweet. Yeah. I'm hoping to reduce the cost 50-70%. So I hope to go from around 700 to around 300. That's what I'm hoping for. And the thing I like about I talked about DigitalOcean before. The only quirk that's a little annoying about them is that I've had to work through is in order to get even a 16 gig validator. I'm just going to go with it. I'm pretty sure I'm running a 16 gig validator right now. Even to get a 16 gig, anything above a 4 or 8 gigabyte instance, you need to have billing history. To get billing history, you need to have been billed before. So how can I go there, sign up for a new account, and start a validator if I don't have billing history? Well, they wouldn't let me do it. I escalated the help desk and everything. They're like, nope, you got to have billing history. It's like, you can't even service me. You can't even give me what I need to run the server that I want to run. So, okay, all right, well, I'll just wait. I'll wait a month. I'll spin up a server. I'll pay like $30 or 15, I don't know what it was. Spin up a tiny server, get a little bit of billing history, and then wait, what do you know? I checked the other day, and automagically, I was available to start up a new instance, start up a new server in the bigger categories, the bigger tiers, I guess, or whatever, 16 gigabyte, 32 gigabyte, all that stuff. So that was a little frustrating. I was like, okay, I can't even do the migration for another month. I have to pay another month running my validators on, a great cloud. AWS is fantastic. It's just, it's just expensive. You're going to run it for a month with that kind of hardware, relatively speaking to everything else. And DigitalOcean, it's a little bit different setup. It's actually pretty different than AWS. I guess totally different if we're talking about as far as how to use the platform, what they call stuff. They call stuff droplets instead of instances, a whole bunch of stuff with that. They use, instead of private key authentication by default, they use password-based authentication by default. You got to set up a new user. Like I go through all this stuff in the documentation too that I created for it, but it's just way different. So anyways, I got the new server set up. I'll go through the process here in a second. Let me say hi to the chat and show you the guide and stuff too. But I'll tell you kind of how I went through the process, what I ran into, all that stuff too. Refined Hayseed Appalachia. Cheers to you as well. Welcome. LMA, good morning to you. Good morning. PulseX, boom, right there. Yeah, 670. Well, yeah, but between 6 and 700. That's what I struggle with. Yes, it's high, but if you're, again, if I think it's high. It looks high now because the PLS price is so down. If the PLS price was a penny, I don't think it, I don't think it would be that big a deal, but it's not. So it's just not as profitable right now. That's the thing. So it's just a little bit, it's just the prices, right? It's the red candles. Everything looks high. Everything's more expensive now, all that stuff. If we're having green candles and everyone was partying and everything was great, like, it's fine. I'm if you're still making hundreds of percent versus making, low thousands percent, it's like, I don't think it's, of course you want to make as much. I mean, yeah, I don't want to tell anyone what they're thinking or what they're trying to do. I would like to make more money than less money, but at the same time, I try to not worry about things that, are, if I'm still 2 scoops versus 3 scoops of ice cream. I'm going back to that analogy. Anyways, I'll give you 3. Welcome. T-Time joining your recent streams. Yeah. Thank you for that. There's been some work to put together, and I've been streaming like every day for a while, especially this week. So I appreciate you hanging out and enjoying them. So hopefully we can keep creating some good content. That's what we're here to do, have utility. That's what I'm trying to do. I think home run now, the bull run makes it DCA cash flow. Yeah, there you go. I mean, if you prefer to, if you're very precise with all your funds and funneling them to DCA and stuff, maybe if you're keeping track spreadsheet wise where your money's going in different directions, and you're really tracking it at that kind of level, then yeah, you're probably going to pay more attention to it. But I'm a little bit more flexible, and I have, different stuff. Everyone's got their own situation, so it's fine. But I want to go into the whole migration process. So I started off by talking about that. Let me share this link in the chat so you guys can, if anyone who wants to get a head start on the DigitalOcean stuff, feel free. I'll just post this in here. So the migration idea, I mean, it's been around for, like I said, it's been around since mainnet launched. I'm like, whoa, this is, I feel like there's a cheaper option out there somewhere. I should go check that out. So I started looking around. I looked at Linode. I looked at DigitalOcean. I kind of didn't look at the bigger players much because I think they're all competing with each other. Azure, Google Cloud, Oracle, OCI, Amazon. I think they're all I believe they're all around the same price. I just didn't think I'd get a better deal, even if signing up and spinning up a Google compute instance, stuff like that. I just didn't think I'd get a better deal or enough to make it worth the migration. So of the smaller tier players, the much cheaper versions, from what I've seen from the stats and quotes and estimates, DigitalOcean, and I think Linode wouldn't even let me spin up. They wanted a whole bunch of I don't know. They were weird. I just didn't have a good experience with them. I forget what it was. They wanted a whole bunch of identification and just all this stuff. And I'm like, guys, what are you talking about? I can spin up an instance with any other cloud service. Nobody asked me for all this stuff. Why would I give it to you? For what? It was very strange. It's not good for onboarded customers. Their process was not seamless. So anyway, set on DigitalOcean, but then I ran into, hey, I want to use one of your 16 gig instances. Can you let me do that? They're like, no, you have to have billing history. Okay, well, I'm a new customer. I'm literally trying to migrate. I'm trying to give you my money. I'm trying to stop giving Amazon my money and start giving you my money. But I can't do that because you have to have billing history. If it's like $200 or $300, how ripped off are you getting every month? Is there how much money are you losing for you have to be this stringent with people? Apparently enough. So they wouldn't budge on the policy. They wouldn't escalate, whatever. So, all right. I don't really have another option that looks interesting at this point. So I went with them. I just spun up a random small instance so I could create some billing history of just a few dollars per month. And then they enabled bigger instances. I picked the bigger instance. So when you go there, I'll just go through the doc real quick. So these are called droplets instead of instances, just a little bit of language difference and stuff. Ubuntu 2204, that's been pretty standard for validators. So they have a 32 gig option. And I forget what the pricing difference is, but there is a difference. So I have this highlighted just because that's been the general consensus. 32 gigs is the safe validator thing. I'm testing, or as I remember, I'm testing the 16 gig droplet. I'm testing that one. So I'll let you know how it goes. So far, I've been validating. Haven't had any problem. You know what? Now that I think about it, there was one hiccup in validating. It did take me a couple days to, I think, get everything synced correctly. It did take longer than expected to be synced and making attestations. So maybe that was the difference. Maybe the lower processing power, lower CPUs, lower memory did make the process take longer. So I guess maybe that's the takeaway from this. Be aware of that. Be aware that it may take longer to set up and get that new instance running, or get that new validator running, the server for it. So yeah, I just thought of that walking through this. Again, the big difference here is in AWS, you use private keys for authentication, which is more secure overall. It is the preferred choice. It's the modern way of authentication. This one is password-based. You can enable private keys and all that stuff, but by default, password-based. And most people setting this stuff up are probably going to use the default option because they're maybe not advanced enough, or it's just, it can get a little messy. So whatever, use a really good, long, secure password. I changed the default port. I think I talked about that too here. I changed it from SSH to remote management port from port 22 to port 2222. And you can change anything you want. You can change to port 2000. Change to port 1 if you want, I guess. I've never seen anyone do that, but you could. It's just a way of, there's a whole bunch of SSH brute force. So they're looking for weak passwords. They're going to try, hey, root 123, root password 1, all that stuff. They're looking for that, and your logs are just going to fill up. You may want to enable, what is it? There's like a deny script. I forget what it's called. There's a bunch of security stuff to enable it if you're running on the default port 22. Anyways, I just said, forget all that. You can just change it, or you can change any port you want. For example, 2222. And, but that is something that I go through a little bit further down the documentation. Anyways, you create the droplet, set the root password. You can enable backups. I really don't know much about the backup part, but I think it was like $10 more a month or something to enable backups. So I'm like, okay. In AWS, I was doing snapshots as backups, and I'm pretty sure they cost more than $10, I think, which makes sense because AWS is more expensive overall. However, I don't know what the process is. I haven't went through it, but I just thought, hey, I'll enable backups, and later on I'll test like how this stuff works, and maybe I'll know more about it. So I thought it was cool enough to do, just in case your server somehow gets nuked or otherwise. Remember, if you're running in the cloud, you don't have to worry about utilities. You don't have to worry about battery backups, none of that, because you're running in the cloud. They're guaranteeing uptime. For the most part, they do a good job across the clouds from what I've seen. It's kind of their job is to like stay up and keep your server running, unless you make some crazy error that, you do have full control of your server. So you can nuke your own server if you typed in the wrong stuff or did the wrong thing or whatever. But for the most part, they take care of the, you not messing it up. And then create droplet. So once your droplet is created, so this is just the interface. You're picking your options for creating it. And then once you do it, you go to project. Yeah, it's like this whole new, takes a while to kind of wrap your head around, okay, there's projects and there's droplets in a project. And it's kind of, I prefer the AWS way, honestly, but whatever, it works. And then reserved IP. So that's something, apparently they just want you to click to get a static IP address, which that may be, I think your AWS one, if you reboot your server, I'm pretty sure it changes from time to time. So that was pretty cool. If they actually give you a static IP address with this, but you got to click the button. They don't do it by default because, it's one of those things they don't want to give everyone one by default because a lot of people don't need it. So if you need it, it's free apparently. You just click enable now, and they'll give you a static IP, which is the reserved IP portion, which is what you want to have for a validator. So you don't have to use the change IP script and all that as often as you might if you had a dynamic IP. So then the networking side, you go back on the networking, scroll on the firewalls, and then this is the firewall portion. So it's called security groups on AWS. Maybe call it something else on your router or otherwise, but basically you're just adding whatever your remote management port is, whether it's 22 or 2222. Again, I would change it if you're using password-based auth because, like I said, you're going to get hit by a bunch of the people searching for weak passwords, which is going to fill up your logs and be generally annoying. So I would just change it. Why not? And then once you have that, apply droplets. Again, that's how you create the firewall. That took a little bit to wrap my head around. Okay, how do I even open ports to make sure my validator computer and do all the validator stuff with all the nodes and stuff. And then last step to increase the volume size. Yeah, so this is a part 2. So the big difference I've seen is that I believe it gives you, you get like 100 gigabyte or 200 gigabyte disk, and then you need to add additional disk, which costs more too, but I still think this is within the $200 or $300 price range. I'm pretty sure. Again, I don't have any estimates yet. I've only been running it for a short period of time, but I think overall it still keeps it within maybe 200 to 400. I'm not sure yet. That's what I'm estimating. But again, half price or better than AWS should be, hopefully, knock on wood. So you need to increase the volume. So again, a couple things you need to do outside of just click, click, click and done. Increase the volume size to 2 terabytes. At least, you can go more or less if you want. They charge you based on the size. And then again, this is just going through what you need to do, add the volume, create the volume, and then a couple of commands to mount the volume, make sure you're using it as the file system or as the, as your, let's see, where am I mounting it? Yeah, opt. So opt is where the blockchain data goes. And that's where, technically that's just really where you need it, because that's where all your terabytes are going to, is blockchain data getting synced and all that stuff. So it's fine to have 200K or 100 gig, 200 gig, whatever, as your main file system mounted on the, the root directory, which is /. But opt is where it's like opt, and that's where the get data goes. That's where the Lighthouse data goes, blockchain data goes. So that's where you need the couple terabytes more of data. So again, commands on how to do that, add a volume. So the two main differences in the process is, well, I guess just getting the reserved IP address, and other than adding firewall rules, which you still have to do with AWS, but actually adding a 2 terabyte volume to make sure you have enough space for blockchain data. Again, did all that. There's instructions. And then, okay, so the third difference is with AWS, it automatically comes with the Ubuntu user. So again, you can use whatever admin user you want to use, like Ubuntu, because that's just an easy default one to use. And that's what AWS comes with. So you can access your droplet through command line or through the web UI. You can bring up a web terminal. So you don't even have to SSH into it yet. You can add the user, add it to the sudo group, make sure it has sudo privileges with no password, unless you just want to type a password in. If you want to change it, if you know what you're doing, you want to change it, fine. But this just makes it a little bit easier for setup. And then make sure that you can escalate to root. This is now an admin user, passwordless admin user. And then this is changing. This is a command line trick to change password authentication to yes. So instead of, again, if you want to set up password private key auth, totally can, up to you. If you want to use password auth, which I think it's easier for a lot of people and just stuff, then you can use these commands. Otherwise, you can figure out how to do the password auth and add that there. It's just, if it doesn't do it by default, I feel like for beginners, it's just going to be one of those, okay, I'm going to beat my head on the keyboard until I figure this out. I'm just trying to make it as easy as possible. So as long as you choose a long, secure password, and again, I prefer to change the port, should be fine. In general, security conceptually wise. And then restart the daemon, and then you can log in. You can exit the web shell, log in using SSH client from Linux or PuTTY client with Windows, and then clone the repo and do all the stuff. I don't know what the estimated costs here are yet. I will try to add that when I know and talk more about it. Don't know that yet, but that is how you can get set up and started on DigitalOcean with the PulseChain Validator.